Welcome to the highlight of the fourth game of the Fide World Chess Championship match between Jan Nepomniachtchi from Russia and Ding Liren from China. At the end of the third round, Jan leads by 2 games to 1. Here in this fourth game, Ding is white, Jan is black. Ding started with c4, which is the English opening. It is already interesting to note that in the first 4 games of this World Championship match, we have seen e4, d4, and now English opening with c4. So we are seeing a lot of variety of chess openings. Black defended with knight f6, white played knight c3, and now black opted for e5, which is a reversed Sicilian defense. It is as if white is playing Sicilian defense, but white has an extra tempo because he is white. He plays knight f3, black played knight c6, and now white played e3. So both the players are developing their pieces quickly. Black played bishop b4, white played queen c2. At this point, black captured the knight with his bishop. Well, one of the reasons why this knight was captured is black ruled out the possibility of knight d5 by white. The knight on d5 could be quite dangerous because it would control all the critical squares from the center of the board. However, black could have exchanged the knight with his knight on f6, but it's a totally different variation altogether. Black rules out this possibility and plays bishop c3. Now this is an important moment of the game. The first major decision for white. He takes the c3 bishop with his pawn. He could have taken with the queen, and that is also a well-known opening variation. Many players have played this move, but white opted for pawn takes the recapture of the bishop with his pawn. Now it is known to everybody that double pawns are weak. Why did Ding weaken his own pawn structure? Well, despite the weakness, the double pawn gives an extra file. Here the b file belongs to white. So white has an extra file. And more importantly, white has a cluster of pawns in the center. So he has an extra pawn coming from b file towards the center. He would control more squares in the center, and that might give him an advantage in future. So this was white's idea when he took back the bishop with his pawn. Well, here black played d6. Already we have an imbalance where black has an extra knight for white's c1 bishop. Black will try to prove his knight is better than the c1 bishop, and vice versa. White will try to prove his bishop is better than the knight. And well, already black puts his pawn on the dark squares so that the pawns restrict white's dark square bishop. We have seen this strategy in the first game of the World Chess Championship match. Now here white played e4, black castled, white developed his bishop, and black went for the enterprising move knight h5. Already looking to play knight f4, and the knight from f4 would put pressure on g2 and e2. Here, white played d4, controlling the f4 square with his bishop on c1. Now, already, white could have played knight e5. This looks very tempting because the bishop attacks the knight. It's a discovered attack where white voluntarily sacrifices his knight in order to take black knight. But this move doesn't work in this particular position because black would take back the knight after white takes this knight, black would play queen g5, attacking the h5 bishop and the g2 pawn. So in this position, black would, well, create a very dangerous counter attack, and he will get a winning position, because if white tries to defend the g2 pawn with bishop f3, black could exchange the bishops and enter on g2 with his queen, attacking the rook. When the rook moves to f1, he could play bishop h3, and he would win at least an exchange on f1. So that would be winning for black, and that is why white doesn't play knight e5. Instead, he played d4. Here, black played knight f4. Okay, personally, I would prefer the move queen f6, so that after knight f4, and if white exchanges on f4, takes on f4, I could retake with my queen. Basically, this way, black could have maintained his foothold in the center with his e5 pawn. But in the game, Jan played knight f4 directly, after which white took on f4, black took on f4, and white has an absolute control over the center with his pawns. So this was a position which looked better for white, because white has more control over the center, and we have a shift in imbalance. Previously, white had a bishop for black's knight. Now he has exchanged his bishop for knight, so both sides have equal pieces, and both sides have one double pawn each, black on the f file, white on the c file. Now let's see how the game proceeded. White played castle, black played queen f6, so both sides are bringing out their pieces. White played rook e1, black played rook e8, and here white played bishop to d3 with the aim of, well, planning to advance this e5 pawn. Well, it is worth mentioning that whenever you have a central pawn mass, or whenever you have a classical center with pawns on e4, d4, one should always consider advancing the central pawns to create attacking chances. So here white plans to play e5 at an opportune moment. Well, there was an alternative. White could have first prevented black's bishop development from g4 by playing h3. In this way, white would have restricted this bishop. It cannot come to g4. However, he had to take into account the move queen g6, which attacks both e4 pawn and h3 pawn. It turns out that after king h2, black cannot capture the e4 pawn with either the queen or the rook, because if he captures the e4 pawn, white would pin the rook and he would have a winning position. Or if he captured, if he captured the e4 with the queen, white would skewer the queen and win the e8 rook. So it is either pin or skewer. Therefore, the move h3 could have been played. Instead, white played bishop d3, which is also okay. Black played bishop g4, white went back, and black played one of the most important moves of the whole game. He played the move knight to a5, and this is a move which is counterintuitive, and it is not advisable to play such moves for student of chess, because it puts the knight to the edge of the board. It puts this knight to the edge of the board, and there is a proverb in chess which is, the knights on the rim are dim. So the future of this knight is not great, especially because black's other pieces are on the king side and center and nobody is cooperating with the knight. The knight on a5 is alone. But why did a player of Jan Nepomniachtchi's stature play such move? Well, black is basically he's planning to put his pawn on c5 to restrict this bishop. The bishop would be stuck behind its own pawn, and then probably the rook would go to c8 and indirectly put pressure on the c4 pawn. So this is black's idea. He does have an idea, and it's a deep idea, but it turns out that knight a5 was indeed premature move. Now white immediately sets out to punish this move by playing c5 himself. He prevented black from advancing pawn c5. Here there was an interesting option for white. That is, he could have played queen to a4, attacking the knight. Black would have no better move than playing b6, and now the main idea of queen a4 is revealed. White would simply play f3, questioning where the bishop wants to go. And the bishop cannot retreat to c8 because the connection between the rooks will be lost, and now the e8 rook will be without support if the bishop retreats to c8. Also, the bishop cannot go to d7 because the queen on a4 controls the d7 square. So here the bishop doesn't have many good options. It has to retreat to a move like bishop h5. And now, with the bishop slightly offside, white can play a very good thematic move, knight b3. After the exchange of these knights, white's pawns are connected, and basically he has an access to a file, and more importantly, the bishop on h5 cannot control the critical squares which white is likely to make use. So white may play, after black plays c5, this is a possible variation. This is not forced, but just to show the type of chances which white may be having in this position. If black captures the d-pawn, white has a brilliant tactics, rook a7, based on the fact that this rook is overloaded. It is defending e8, it was also defending a7. So black cannot take a7 because the e8 rook would be lost. So he has to play something like rook to d8, and now the queen can comfortably sit on d5. The bishop is not in a position to drive away the white queen. So this is the type of position which white could have got had he played queen a4. Instead, he went for a very interesting pawn sacrifice, c5. Well, talking about sacrifices, there are two types of sacrifices. One of them is short-term sacrifice, which we call tactical sacrifice, and the other type of sacrifices are long-term sacrifices, which we call positional sacrifice. In either case, the player who is investing material or sacrificing, he aims to get something more in return. In case of long-term sacrifice, he believes that he will get something more than the amount sacrificed or the material sacrificed, but in the long run. So here white plays c5, black takes c5, and by dislodging the pawn from d6, white actually advances e5 and d5. So white has a menacing, threatening pawns in the center. He's a pawn down, but the interesting fact is black has two doubled pawns, one on the F file and the other on the C file. At the start of the game, it was white who started with a double pawn on C file, but now black has two double pawns and white is a pawn down. But look at this knight. The knight is totally cut off from play. It cannot retreat. It cannot come here. Black played rook a d8. With the hindsight, we will see that later black doubled his rook on the e file. If black really wanted to double the rook on the e file, and had he found out the idea at this moment, he might have played a move like b6 or even rook e7, saving time on rook a d8. But he went rook d8 and white played c4. Black played b6 to make way for the knight to come to b7, as well as provide extra protection for the c5 pawn. Now white played h3, putting a question to the bishop. The bishop went to h5 because it wants to disrupt, it wants to disrupt white's rook a d1 idea. So it goes to h5, and now white came up with a very nice idea. White played bishop e4. His idea is to put his bishop or knight on f3 and then centralize his rook, or maybe the way white played, double the rooks on the e file. The point is black cannot capture on e5 because white would then have a discovered attack, a check followed by capturing the rook. So here, after bishop e4, black played rook e7 to put some pressure on the e-pawn. White played queen c3 defending the e-pawn. White put pressure and black defended the e-pawn with his rook. Now in this position, if black captures the f3 bishop, white would recapture with the knight, strengthening his central pawns. And in this particular position, although white is a pawn down, his pieces are much better, and especially black's knight on a5 is doing almost nothing. It's not participating in fight. And this is a very difficult position for black to continue. While white can activate his rooks and look for d6 or e6 at the opportune moment, black does not have any purposeful ideas. Therefore, after bishop f3, black did not exchange the bishops, but he came up with a very, very nice defensive idea. So if you are watching this game and if you want to learn something about how to defend passive positions, you may pause my video and you may guess what defensive idea did Jan Nepomniachtchi find here. Well, he played the move knight to b7, trying to bring the knight to a great square. And where does the knight aim at? Well, we shall see shortly. White played rook e2. So now we realize why white played the bishop to f3. Basically, the e2 square was covered by the black bishop. So now he plays rook e2 and doubles his rook. Black plays a brilliant move, that is f6. With this move, he forces white to advance his pawn, and then he puts his knight to d6, a solid blockading square. So in just 3 moves, the hopeless knight from a5 has come to a very useful blockading square on d6. However, in return, to activate his knight, black has basically deactivated his rooks. His rooks are really very bad. They are suffocated and they do not have any open files. But still the position is blocked. Black is a pawn up and it's very difficult for white to find a breakthrough. There is no way how white is able to open the line. Well, having played so well, it is about this position. I think black started becoming overconfident. He has defended the position superbly, and even white had played very well, so it would have been a very nice game with equal chances. But black became overambitious and he played knight f5. So had he played a move like, say, bishop g6 or any other move, it's very difficult for white to open lines and penetrate into black's position. In the long run, black may have some chances with advancement of kingside pawns. After all, he's a pawn up. But at this moment, I would rate the position equal. And although white has space advantage, he is unable to break through black's defense. Now here black got overambitious and played knight f5 with the idea of attacking. This knight would come to d4. So from a5, it started hopping to b7, d6, f5, and now he's planning to go to d4. But, well, white played bishop h5 and he played rook e4, attacking the f4 pawn. It is here black defended the f4 pawn with queen h6. White played queen f3, attacking the f4 pawn once again. And now black should have defended the pawn by playing g5. And he should have maintained his blockade by going back to knight d6 whenever the knight would be attacked. Instead, black played, instead of g5, black played the move knight to d4. He went for attack, and this was a blunder by black. Well, for all students, it's a very, very instructive moment, because the only active piece for black in the whole position is this knight. It is the hero of the game, and it was a mistake for black to have offered exchange of the knight with the rook. Black's rooks are absolutely in very passive positions. And after white exchanges this and plays knight b3, his idea is to take the pawn with the knight. This knight will be much better than black's rook. So this is where black missed. Black played the move g5. Perhaps black planned to play c5 here, preventing white's knight from coming to d4. And perhaps he missed that white could play d5, d6, and the dangerous pawns would prevail over black's defense. So a sample variation is black, if he takes the e6 pawn with the rook, white would capture, black would recapture, white would pin the rook with his queen. And basically this is a winning position because he cannot prevent white's pawn from promoting. Okay, so this may be one of the moves which black had missed while playing knight d4. And after white played knight b3, black played g5. White took the d4 pawn with the knight, and it's very clear that the knight is dominating the whole board. It has great squares to go on f5, on c6, while the rook is absolutely passive. The knight is much better than the rook. Black played queen g6, and white played a very nice move. He played g4. So he wants the knight to sit here on f5. Okay, after this, Black played Fg, white played Fg. The knight would sit on F5. Black played H5. He wants to create some space for his rooks. White went knight F5. The knight is a real monster over here. Black played rook H7. White played another good move, queen E4. His idea is to go knight E7 and take the queen. Black played king H8, and over here white went for the kill. He pushed his pawn to the 7th rank. His idea is to invade in black's position by playing queen E6, perhaps queen D7, advance his other pawn to D6. It's an absolutely winning position. The rook on E8 has no square to go. Black played queen F7 and white played D6. The two pawns are advancing. Black had to take CD6, knight D6. The queen has to move, and white took back the exchange which he had lost. So material is equal, but white has a monster pawn on E7. White played queen E6. Now black has to not only defend against the promotion idea, but he also has to defend against the weakness on F6 and especially the king. Now black defended the threat of queen F6 with king G7, white attacked F6 with rook F1, rook H6, and now white switches to plan B, that is promotion of the pawn. He goes rook D1, black played F5, it's a move in desperation. Basically he's attacking the rook, so he doesn't give white time for rook D8. Now there are many ways to win, but white played check. Black went king F7, white captured the F5 with a check. Black went rook F6. He cannot capture the pawn on E7 because white would then skewer the queen and king by playing rook E1 check and win the queen in the next move. So black had to play rook F6, after which white played queen H7 check. Black went king E6. The king is exposed. Now he played queen G7. Basically he is threatening the rook. He would play rook E1 check, and when the king moves from E6, white will capture the rook on F6. So black had to play something like rook G6. White went queen F8, and over here black resigned, because if he plays, well, white is threatening to move the queen on E8 and promote his pawn. If black defends by playing rook G8, white would play rook D7 and win at least a rook. Well, black may have no better move than playing queen E7, after which queen E7, king E7, rook G8, white is a rook up. So it was a fantastic game, a very eventful game by both the players, and we saw a very classical demonstration of how to play with center. And Jan, perhaps he defended very well, but he got overambitious, and after a point he simply blundered by forgetting the elementary principle that one should never exchange his most active piece with his opponent pieces. So now with the draw, we have the match even at 2 games each. The next day is a rest day, and we shall be back after the 5th round with fresh lessons from the World Chess Championship. Thanks for watching.